The silence of deep space was broken only by the soft beeping of failing systems aboard the Phantom. Commander Jack Wilson moved quickly between control panels, his face lit by the red emergency lights. 3 days ago, his scout ship had been caught in an unexpected radiation burst while mapping the outer reaches of the Vega sector. Now he was stranded, floating in the empty space between star systems. "Computer, run diagnostics on the propulsion system again," Jack ordered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Propulsion system operating at 28% capacity. Insufficient for interstellar travel," the computer replied in its flat voice. Jack sighed and looked out the viewport at the endless black of space. Earth Command wouldn't send a rescue mission. His ship was too far from human space, and scout pilots knew the risks when they took the job. He was on his own. The Phantom was a small ship with a crew of 1, designed for speed and stealth rather than comfort. At 42, Jack was older than most scouts. He had served in Earth's Special Forces for 15 years before taking this job. The pay was good, and he preferred the quiet of space to the chaos of Earth. "Computer, scan for any nearby vessels or stations," Jack said as he checked the oxygen recycler. "Scanning. Alert. Encrypted transmission detected." Jack stopped what he was doing. "Source. Transmission origin. Collective military frequency." The Collective. Jack's jaw tightened. The alliance of 7 advanced alien species had dominated galactic politics for centuries. When humans had finally developed faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, the Collective had grudgingly allowed them into the galactic community, but only as second-class citizens, restricted to a handful of colonies, and denied access to the most advanced technologies. "Can you decrypt it?" Jack asked. "Decryption in progress. Estimated completion time. 6 hours." Jack nodded. 6 hours was nothing when stranded in space. He returned to repairing what he could while waiting. 5 hours and 43 minutes later, Jack was woken from a brief rest by the computer. "Decryption complete." Jack sat up quickly. "Play transmission." The computer's speakers crackled to life. 2 alien voices spoke in the common galactic language. Jack listened carefully as they discussed something called Operation Storm Purge. "The Council has approved the first phase," said a deep voice. "The purge will begin with the smaller colonies in the outer sectors." "Are the targets confirmed?" asked a second voice. "Yes. Priority targets include the settlements on Horizon, New Altair, and the mining outpost at Cygnus Delta." Jack's blood ran cold. Horizon was a human colony. "And the humans?" the second voice asked. "The Council believes they pose the greatest long-term threat. Their adaptability makes them unpredictable. The assessment is that within a century, they could challenge collective dominance if left unchecked. Then Storm Purge is necessary. Better to eliminate the threat now than face a war later." The transmission ended, leaving Jack in stunned silence. The Collective was planning to attack human colonies, starting with Horizon. It wasn't a military target, just a small farming settlement with about 5,000 people. "Computer, can you calculate the position where this transmission originated?" "Affirmative." Transmission originated from Collective Outpost Delta 9, approximately 3.2 light-years from current position. Jack began pacing the small cabin. He needed to warn Earth Command, but his long-range communications were damaged. By the time he repaired his ship and reached human space, it might be too late for Horizon. He stopped suddenly, a plan forming in his mind. He couldn't save everyone, but maybe he could disrupt the Collective's plans. Buy some time. "Computer, how much fuel do we have?" "Current fuel reserves at 62%. And if we reroute power from all non-essential systems to propulsion?" "Propulsion could operate at 54% capacity, sufficient for short-range FTL jumps." Jack nodded. "Plot a course to Collective Outpost Delta 9. Warning: approaching a Collective military installation without clearance is a violation of Treaty Section 12. "Override warning," Jack interrupted. "Execute course." 3 days later, The Phantom drifted silently toward Outpost Delta 9. Jack had shut down every system that wasn't absolutely necessary, including life support. He wore his emergency suit to stay warm in the freezing cabin. The outpost grew larger in his viewport, a massive wheel-shaped station orbiting a small rocky moon. Jack had studied collective designs during his Special Forces training. He knew their blind spots. Computer, engage stealth systems. Stealth systems engage. Note: current damage reduces effectiveness by 37%. Jack grimaced. Not ideal, but it would have to do. Approach vector through the radiation shadow of the moon. Keep us in the sensor dead zone. The Phantom moved slowly, using minimal thrust to avoid detection. Jack watched the scanner, holding his breath each time a collective patrol ship passed nearby. None detected his approach. As the Phantom neared the station, Jack opened a small access panel beneath his command chair and retrieved a device no bigger than his palm. A quantum data spike, stolen technology that the humans weren't supposed to have. Computer, when we're within range, lock onto their main communications array. Acknowledged. The Phantom drifted closer to the station, hiding in the electronic noise generated by the outpost itself. Jack waited, counting the seconds. Target in range, the computer announced. Dock with access port J7, Jack ordered. The ship moved the final distance to the station's hull, magnetic clamps engaging silently. Jack pulled on his helmet, checked his oxygen, and picked up the data spike. If I'm not back in 40 minutes, execute Emergency Protocol Omega, he told the computer. Acknowledged. Protocol requires confirmation. Are you certain? Jack nodded grimly. Protocol Omega would send the Phantom on a collision course with the station's reactor while broadcasting everything it had recorded on all frequencies. A last resort. Confirmed. Jack entered the airlock and cycled it open to space. He pushed off from his ship, drifting the short distance to the station's maintenance hatch. The special magnetic gloves and boots of his suit allowed him to attach to the hull. He placed a small device against the hatch controls. A soft beep indicated success as the hatch slid open. Jack slipped inside, closing it behind him. Inside the station, Jack moved quickly through maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where collective personnel would be. His helmet display showed a map he had memorized years ago during training. The communications hub would be 3 levels up. As he climbed through the access shafts, Jack thought about Horizon Colony. His sister had moved there with her family 5 years ago, tired of Earth's overcrowded cities. Was she still there? He hadn't spoken to her in over a year. Jack reached the communications hub and peered through a ventilation grate. 2 alien technicians worked at control panels. Tall, thin beings with 4 arms and silvery skin. Selections, the technical specialists of the collective. Jack waited until one left the room. Then he slipped from the vent, moving silently across the floor. Before the remaining technician could turn, Jack pressed a tranquilizer patch to its neck. The alien collapsed without a sound. Working quickly, Jack connected the data spike to the main console. The device would download all information about Operation Storm Purge while uploading a virus designed to scramble collective communications. As the download progressed, Jack found a terminal and searched for details about the planned attack on Horizon. The information confirmed his worst fears. The attack was scheduled to begin in just 2 weeks. The data spike beeped softly, indicating it had finished. Jack disconnected it and was about to leave when an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Intruder alert. Security breach in Communications Hub 3. They had detected him sooner than expected. Jack rushed back to the ventilation shaft, pulling himself inside just as the door slid open and armed guards rushed in. The hunt had begun. Jack moved through the ventilation shafts as quickly as he could. The alarm continued to blare throughout the station. Behind him, he could hear the collective guards searching the communications hub. Computer, status report, Jack whispered into his helmet comm. Station security has been alerted. Multiple search parties detected. Recommended course of action. Immediate extraction. Jack grimaced. He had hoped for more time. The data spike in his pocket contained valuable information, but he needed to get it back to his ship. He reached a junction in the ventilation system and paused. According to the map in his helmet display, the shortest route back to his ship was now blocked by security personnel. He would have to find another way. Computer, alternate route to docking port J7. Calculating. Alternate route available through maintenance level B. Warning. High probability of security presence. Show me, Jack ordered. A new path appeared on his display. It would take him through the lower sections of the station, areas used for storing supplies and equipment. Less populated, but also less cover if he was spotted. Jack began moving again, crawling through the narrow shafts until he reached a larger duct. He kicked out the grate and dropped down into a dimly lit storage room filled with crates of equipment. The door to the corridor was locked, but Jack had come prepared. He pulled a small device from his belt and attached it to the control panel. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Jack peered into the hallway. Empty for now, but he could hear the heavy footsteps of guards in the distance. He slipped out and moved quickly along the wall, staying in the shadows. Around a corner, Jack froze. Two collective guards stood at an intersection, checking each room. They were Drakari, hulking reptilian beings known for their strength and keen senses. Their scaled skin shimmered under the station lights. Jack pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. The Drakari would detect him easily if they turned in his direction. He needed a distraction. Reaching into a pocket, Jack pulled out a small metal sphere, a sonic disruptor. He activated it and tossed it down the opposite corridor. The sphere rolled to a stop 30 meters away, then emitted a high-pitched whine. The Drakari guards turned toward the sound, raising their weapons. Security breach in Corridor 12B. One growled into its communicator. Both moved toward the distraction, away from Jack. As soon as they were out of sight, Jack continued toward the maintenance level. He was halfway there when his helmet display flashed a warning. Alert. Station sensors conducting high-intensity scan. Stealth suit effectiveness reduced to 40%. They were getting smarter. Jack quickened his pace. If they recalibrated their sensors to detect his Special Forces suit, he would lose his advantage. He reached a maintenance hatch and climbed down a ladder to level B. The corridor here was narrow, filled with pipes and electrical conduits. Jack moved carefully, aware that one wrong step could trigger a system alarm. Commander Wilson, his computer spoke in his ear. The Phantom has detected increased security around all docking ports. Escape probability now at 32%. Jack didn't respond. He needed to focus. 32% wasn't great, but he had faced worse odds. He turned a corner and stopped. Ahead, a single guard stood before the final corridor that would lead to his ship. This one was a Silexian, like the technician from earlier, but armed with a pulse rifle. Jack couldn't use the sonic disruptor again. The trick wouldn't work twice. He needed another approach. Looking up, he noticed a steam pipe running across the ceiling. Jack pulled a small laser cutter from his belt and carefully aimed it at a joint in the pipe. The laser sliced through the metal. Scalding steam burst forth with a loud hiss. The Silexian guard turned toward the sound, raising its weapon. In that moment of distraction, Jack rushed forward. Before the guard could fire, Jack struck the pressure point at the base of its neck, a vulnerability he had learned about during his Special Forces training. The Silexian collapsed, unconscious. Jack dragged the guard behind some crates and continued toward the docking port where the Phantom waited. Computer, prepare for immediate departure. Power up engines but keep them at minimal signature. Acknowledged. Warning. 3 security vessels have taken position near our docking port. Jack swore under his breath. Getting to his ship was one thing. Getting away from the station was another problem entirely. He reached the airlock where he had entered and peered through a small viewport. The Phantom was still attached to the hull, but now 3 collective patrol ships hovered nearby, their spotlights scanning the station's surface. Jack cycled the airlock and pushed off toward his ship. Using the station's hull for cover, he moved from shadow to shadow, avoiding the sweeping lights. The magnetic boots of his suit allowed him to walk across the hull like it was solid ground. He reached the Phantom and quickly entered through the ship's airlock. Once inside, he removed his helmet and moved to the pilot's seat. "Computer, status report," he ordered. "Hull integrity at 83%. Propulsion at 58%. Stealth systems at 42% effectiveness." Not ideal, but it would have to do. Jack inserted the data spike into the ship's computer. "Download all information and analyze. Focus on Operation Storm Purge." While the computer processed the stolen data, Jack studied the patrol ships outside. They were Mk-7 interceptors, fast, well-armed, and equipped with advanced tracking systems. The Phantom couldn't outrun them, especially not in its damaged state. "Data analysis complete," the computer announced. "Operation Storm Purge is a coordinated military action against 17 colonies deemed potentially destabilizing to collective authority. First-wave targets include all human settlements in the outer sectors." Jack's hands tightened on the controls. Timeline. First attacks scheduled to begin in 12 standard days. Horizon Colony is designated as Priority Target 3. 12 days. Not much time, but enough if he moved quickly. "Computer, do we have the coordinates for Horizon Colony?" "Affirmative." "And what about this outpost? Any weaknesses we can exploit?" "Station power core operates on a 3-minute cycle. During reset periods, security systems experience a 1.8-second delay." Jack smiled. "That's our window. Calculate the next reset cycle." "Next cycle in 47 seconds. Jack powered up the Phantom's engines, keeping them just below detection threshold. He disconnected the magnetic clamps that held the ship to the station and let it drift slowly away. 30 seconds to power cycle. The computer counted down. Jack positioned his hand over the thrust controls, ready to move the moment the window opened. 10 seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1. Power cycle initiated. Jack pushed the engines to maximum. The Phantom shot away from the station, accelerating rapidly. By the time the patrol ships registered the movement, he had already gained significant distance. Alarms blared as the interceptors gave chase. Energy bolts flashed past the Phantom as the collective ships opened fire. "Computer, prepare for jump to lightspeed. Set course for Horizon Colony. Warning. Pursuing vessels will be able to track our jump vector." "Understood. Execute false jump to the Cygnus sector, then recalculate for Horizon once we're clear." The stars began to stretch into lines as the FTL drive engaged. The patrol ships grew smaller behind them, still firing, but with diminishing accuracy. Then the Phantom vanished into hyperspace, leaving only confusion in its wake. Aboard the station, the collective commander received the reports with growing anger. An intruder had infiltrated their secure facility, stolen classified information, and escaped despite their security measures. "Identify the vessel," the commander ordered. Analysis confirms it was a human scout ship, modified with non-standard technology. The commander's 4 eyes narrowed. "A human? One human did all this?" "It appears so, Commander." "Find them, whatever it takes." As the Phantom traveled through hyperspace, Jack reviewed the stolen data. Operation Storm Purge was even worse than he had feared. A systematic elimination of any species or colony that showed too much independence from collective rule. The humans were merely the first targets in a larger campaign. He had to warn them. He had to prepare them. But first, he needed to become the one thing the collective would never expect, a ghost that could strike from anywhere and disappear before they could respond. The silent shadow that would disrupt their perfect storm. 3 days after his escape from the collective outpost, Jack brought the Phantom out of hyperspace at the edge of the Horizon system. He had made 2 more jumps to throw off any pursuit, taking a path no collective navigator would expect. Computer, passive scan of the system. Keep our signature minimal, Jack ordered. Scanning. No collective vessels detected. Horizon colony signals normal. Jack released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They hadn't arrived yet. There was still time. He guided the Phantom toward the third planet in the system, a blue-green world with 2 small moons. Horizon Colony was located on the northern continent, a settlement of roughly 5,000 humans who had come to farm the fertile land and mine the rich mineral deposits. Computer, establish secure communication with the colony. Unable to comply. Long-range communications still damaged from radiation burst. Jack frowned. He would have to land and warn them in person. Risky, but necessary. As the Phantom entered the atmosphere, Jack noticed something on his scanner. A small ship leaving the colony. Its design was familiar. An old Earth transport shuttle. Computer, identify that vessel. Earth Transport Shuttle. Designation Morning Star. Registered to Thomas Reed, former Earth military. Tom Reed. Jack knew that name. They had served together in the Special Forces before Tom retired 5 years ago. Last Jack had heard, Tom had become a security consultant. What was he doing on Horizon? Hail that shuttle. Short range only. The comm crackled to life. Unidentified vessel. This is Morning Star. Identify yourself, or I will alert colony defense. Jack smiled at the familiar voice. Tom, it's Jack Wilson. Don't shoot me down. I'm having a bad enough week already. A pause then. Jack, what the hell are you doing out here? Need to talk. It's urgent. Can you land somewhere private? Another pause. Follow me. There's a clearing in the forest 10 kilometers east of the colony. No sensors there. 20 minutes later, both ships had landed in a small meadow surrounded by tall, purple-leaved trees. Jack emerged from the Phantom to find Tom waiting, a pulse pistol held casually at his side. Tom was older than Jack remembered, his hair now completely gray, his face more lined, but his eyes were still sharp and alert. You look like hell, Tom said by way of greeting. Good to see you too, Jack replied. We need to talk. The collective is planning something called Operation Storm Purge. This colony is on their target list. Tom's expression hardened. Inside. Now. In the shuttle, Jack downloaded the stolen data to Tom's computer and explained everything. The intercepted transmission, his infiltration of the collective outpost, and what he had learned about their plans. Tom studied the information, his face growing grimmer by the minute. According to this, the first attack ships will arrive in 9 days. 8 now, Jack corrected. I lost a day making sure I wasn't followed. Tom ran a hand through his gray hair. 5,000 colonists against a collective battle fleet. Not good odds. Then we changed the odds, Jack said. The colony has defenses, right? Basic stuff. Automated turrets, a shield generator for the main settlement. Nothing that would stop a determined military force. Jack nodded slowly. We don't need to stop them. We just need to slow them down and call for help. Earth fleet is weeks away, even at maximum speed, Tom pointed out. Then we fight smart. Make them think they're facing more than they are. Jack tapped the data spike. I have their attack plans, their formations, their communication protocols. We can use that. Tom studied him for a moment, then smiled. A predator's smile. You want to be ghosts. Exactly. Hit where they don't expect. Vanish before they can respond. Create confusion. I have some friends in the colony, former military, security consultants, about 20 reliable people who know how to fight. Jack nodded. Get them together. I'll need to modify my ship for what I have in mind. 7 days later, the storm broke. The collective attack fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Horizon system. 12 warships led by the command vessel Eternal Vigilance. On its bridge, Fleet Commander Drav of the Oraki species watched the blue-green planet on the main view screen. Status report, Drav ordered. His voice was deep and resonant. typical of the crystalline beings that made up the Iraqi. "All systems nominal, Commander," his second replied. "No resistance detected. Colony appears unaware of our presence." "Good. Proceed as planned. Deploy fighters for the first wave." Across the fleet, launch bays opened as hundreds of fighter craft poured out, forming into attack formations. They accelerated toward horizon, weapons charged. In the colony, warning sirens began to wail. People rushed to the shelters, guided by Tom and his security team. Over the past week, they had prepared as best they could, stockpiling supplies, reinforcing the shelters, setting up emergency medical stations. "First wave approaching," one of Tom's team reported. 2 minutes to contact." Tom activated his communicator. "Jack, they're here. Right on schedule." High above the planet, hidden in the shadow of the smaller moon, Jack sat in the cockpit of the Phantom. Over the past week, he had modified his ship with parts salvaged from old equipment in the colony. The Phantom wasn't pretty anymore, but it had teeth. "Copy that. Operation Ghost begins now." Jack activated the modified communications array. Immediately, the Phantom began broadcasting on multiple collective military frequencies, using the codes he had stolen. In the fighter formation, confusion spread as pilots received contradictory orders. Some ships broke formation, turning to investigate supposed threats that weren't there. Others slowed, waiting for clarification. On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, alarms sounded. "Commander, we have multiple security breaches in our communications network," an officer reported. "Fighters are receiving conflicting orders." Drav's crystalline form shimmered with anger. "How is this possible? Trace the source." "Unable to locate. Signal appears to be coming from multiple locations simultaneously." As the collective fleet scrambled to regain control of their communications, Jack guided the Phantom out of hiding. He accelerated toward the scattered fighter formation, targeting the lead ships with his modified weapons. 3 fighters exploded before they realized they were under attack. By the time they turned to engage, the Phantom had vanished again, slipping between sensor gaps Jack had identified in the stolen data. On the planet's surface, Tom and his team activated the colony's defense turrets, instead of targeting the incoming fighters directly, a battle they couldn't win. They fired into empty space, following a pattern Jack had calculated to create the illusion of a much larger defense network. The collected fighters, already confused by the communications chaos, scattered to avoid Phantom threats. What should have been a swift, coordinated attack became a hesitant, disorganized approach. Commander Drav watched in growing fury as his perfect attack plan fell apart. "What is happening? How is a simple colony causing this much disruption?" "Commander, we've identified one ship moving between our formations. It appears to be a human scout vessel." "One ship?" Drav's voice was incredulous. "One ship is doing this. It's using our blind spots, sir. Moving through sensor gaps we didn't know existed." Drav slammed a crystalline fist on his command console. "Bring the fleet closer. Full sensor sweep. Find that ship and destroy it." The collective warships began to move toward the planet, their massive forms pushing through space with ponderous grace. Jack watched them come, a grim smile on his face. They took the bait, Tom. Phase 2. On the surface, Tom activated a series of small drones they had prepared. The drones rose into the atmosphere, each broadcasting signals that mimicked Earth military vessels. "Phantom signatures deployed," Tom confirmed. "Let's see how they react to thinking Earth sent an advance force." In the collective fleet, more alarms sounded. "Commander, multiple new contacts appearing around the planet. Signatures match Earth military vessels." Drav studied the tactical display. According to their intelligence, Earth couldn't possibly have ships here yet, but the evidence on his screen suggested otherwise. "Hold position," he ordered. "This could be a trap." As the collective fleet hesitated, Jack struck again. The Phantom darted between 2 warships, firing precisely at their sensor arrays before disappearing again. With their sensors damaged, the ships began firing blindly, nearly hitting their own fighters. For the colonists watching from the surface, it was an incredible sight. The massive collective fleet, frozen in confusion, fighting shadows while a single human ship danced between them. The storm had broken, but not as the collective had planned. And somewhere in that storm, a ghost was turning their own weapons against them. 2 days had passed since the first collective attack. What should have been a quick victory for the alien fleet had turned into a frustrating standoff. The massive warships remained in high orbit, unwilling to commit to a full assault after their initial confusion. On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Fleet Commander Drav received a transmission. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of High Admiral Vex. Even through the hologram, Vex's presence was intimidating, tall and broad-shouldered, with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around a central sensory organ. As one of the most decorated military leaders in the collective, Vex's appearance meant the situation had escalated to the highest levels. Fleet Commander, Vex's voice was calm but cold. The Council is concerned about your lack of progress. Drav's crystalline form dimmed slightly in embarrassment. There have been complications, Admiral. The humans are using unconventional tactics. They've somehow accessed our communication protocols and... I've read your reports, Vex interrupted. A single human ship causing this much disruption is unacceptable. The Council has decided I will take personal command of this operation. My flagship, the Inevitable Conclusion, will arrive in 6 hours. Be prepared to brief me on all developments. The hologram vanished before Drav could respond. He stood motionless for a moment, then turned to his second-in-command. Prepare all logs and tactical data for the Admiral's arrival, and double our efforts to locate that human ship. In the dense forests 30 kilometers from the main colony, Jack and Tom had established a hidden base of operations. The Phantom was concealed beneath a canopy of purple-leaved trees, while a small prefabricated shelter housed their communications equipment. Jack studied the tactical display showing the positions of the collective warships. They're being cautious. That buys us time, but not much. Tom nodded. The evacuation is 60% complete. We've moved most of the children and elderly to the cave systems in the eastern mountains. Good. What about our other preparations? The drone network is fully operational. We can project false signatures anywhere in the system now. And my team has finished setting up the modified shield generators around the secondary settlements. Jack was about to respond when one of their sensors beeped. New contact. Massive ship dropping out of hyperspace. The tactical display updated, showing a vessel twice the size of any in the current fleet. Jack's expression grew grim. That's a Sovereign-class dreadnought. The collective only sends those with a High Admiral on board. Tom whistled. They're taking us seriously now. Too seriously. Jack zoomed in on the new arrival. That's the Inevitable Conclusion. Flagship of High Admiral Vex. You know about this, Vex? Jack nodded. The data I stole included personnel files. Vex is their best strategist, responsible for crushing dozens of rebellions across the galaxy. He's methodical, patient, and utterly ruthless. So our tricks won't work on him. Not for long. Jack studied the display. He'll analyze our patterns, adapt his tactics. We need to change our approach. Tom frowned. What are you thinking? Something crazy. Jack pointed to a spot on the map. There's a massive ion storm forming in the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. If I can lead their ships there, that's suicide, Jack. Your sensors would be useless in that storm. So would theirs. It would level the playing field. Jack stood up. I need to modify the Phantom again. There's something I've been saving for a special occasion. Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of the Inevitable Conclusion, studying the tactical data from the past 2 days. His 6 eyes moved independently, taking in different displays simultaneously. Fascinating, he murmured. Show me the movement patterns of the human ship again. The tactical officer complied, displaying a series of trajectories across the main screen. Vex watched carefully, his mind analyzing the patterns. There, he pointed to a particular maneuver. That's not a standard human military tactic. That's improvisation. Creative. Instinctive. Fleet Commander Drav looked confused. Is that significant, Admiral? Extremely. We've been approaching this as a military operation against human forces. But this? Vex gestured at the display. This is the work of a single adaptive mind. Someone who understands our weaknesses and exploits them with precision. Vex turned to his officers. Recalibrate all sensors. Focus on tracking the energy signature of that scout ship, not the phantom signals it's projecting. And prepare a squadron of our newest hunter-seeker drones. I want that ship found. Jack finished the modifications to the Phantom's engines. The new configuration would allow for brief bursts of speed beyond normal safety parameters, potentially enough to outrun the collective's hunter-seekers if necessary. His communicator beeped. Jack, we've got movement, Tom's voice reported. The collective fleet is deploying some kind of new drones, hundreds of them, spreading out in a search pattern. Jack climbed into the cockpit and activated the systems. They're adapting faster than I expected. Vex must have figured out our deception. What's the plan now? I'm going to give them something real to chase. Power up the colony's shield generators to maximum. This might get rough. Jack launched the Phantom, deliberately allowing its energy signature to be detected. Almost immediately, the hunter-seeker drones changed course, converging on his position. I've got their attention, Jack reported. Now for the hard part. He pushed the Phantom to full speed, heading directly toward the collective fleet. The drones followed, their sleek forms cutting through space with frightening efficiency. On the bridge of the inevitable conclusion, alarms sounded. Admiral, the human ship has been detected. It's heading straight for us. Vex's 6 eyes focused on the tactical display. Interesting. Not running, but attacking. Target all forward batteries on its approach vector. The massive weapons of the flagship powered up, preparing to obliterate the tiny scout ship. But at the last moment, the Phantom veered sharply, diving beneath the flagship's defensive screen. It's underneath us. An officer shouted. Weapons can't target at that angle. Jack guided his ship in a tight spiral around the flagship's hull, firing precision shots at sensor arrays and communication nodes. Not enough to seriously damage the massive vessel, but enough to cause confusion and draw attention. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, Jack changed course again, accelerating away from the fleet toward the distant asteroid belt. Vex watched calmly. The ion storm. That's where he's going. He turned to his navigation officer. Plot and intercept course. All ships to follow, but maintain distance. This human is leading us into a trap, but knowledge of the trap is itself an advantage. The collective fleet began to move, following the Phantom toward the roiling clouds of ionized gas now visible at the edge of the system. Jack checked his sensors. The entire fleet was following, just as he had hoped. But so were the hunter-seeker drones, and they were gaining. Tom, status on the evacuation. 90% complete. We need another hour to get the last group to the caves. You'll have it. Jack pushed his engines harder, the ship shuddering as it approached its structural limits. The first of the hunter-seekers was now just moments from weapon range. Jack waited until the last possible second, then cut his engines and spun the ship 180 degrees. In the brief moment the drone was visible in his targeting system, he fired. The drone exploded, but 3 more were right behind it. Jack restarted his engines and dove into the edge of the ion storm. Immediately, his instruments began to flicker. The storm's electromagnetic interference scrambled sensors and communications alike. Behind him, several hunter-seekers lost tracking and collided with asteroids or each other. But Vex's flagship continued its steady approach, its more powerful systems capable of functioning even in these conditions. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, we've lost contact with most of the hunter-seekers, but our main sensors can still track the human ship, albeit with reduced accuracy. Vex nodded. As expected, this human is clever, but not clever enough. Continue pursuit. Prepare boarding parties. I want that pilot captured alive. Inside the storm, Jack guided the Phantom through a dense field of asteroids, using the natural cover to mask his movements. His ship's systems were failing one by one as the ion storm intensified, but that was part of the plan. The Phantom wasn't just a ship anymore. It was bait, and the greatest hunter in the collective had taken it. The ghost was about to be revealed, but on his own terms. Deep within the ion storm, the Phantom limped between asteroid fragments, its hull scorched by near misses from collective weapons. Jack checked the systems. Power at 30%, weapons at minimal capacity, shields failing. But none of that mattered now. The plan was working. "Tom, status report." Jack spoke into his communicator, the signal barely cutting through the storm's interference. "Evacuation complete." Tom's voice crackled back. "All colonists are safely in the mountain shelters. What's your situation?" "The entire collective fleet followed me into the storm." Vex took the bait. "Good. The package is ready. Transmitting coordinates now." Jack's display flickered, showing a small asteroid near the center of the storm. According to the data, Tom's team had placed a modified communications relay there, one that would amplify Jack's broadcast 1,000 times over. "Received. I'm heading there now." "How much time do you need?" "Another 30 minutes to activate the colony's defense grid with the new parameters. Then we'll be ready." Jack adjusted course toward the coordinates. "I'll give you the time." Wilson out. Behind the Phantom, the massive form of the inevitable conclusion pushed through the storm, its powerful engines driving it forward despite the electromagnetic interference. Smaller collective ships surrounded it, forming a search pattern designed to cut off any escape routes. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Vex studied the tactical display. Despite the storm's interference, his advanced sensors could still track the general location of the human ship. "He's changing course," Vex observed, not trying to escape the storm, but moving deeper into it. Fleet Commander Drav looked confused. "That makes no strategic sense. Admiral, his ship is damaged. He should be attempting to flee." "Unless fleeing was never his intention." Vex's 6 eyes narrowed. "This human has demonstrated remarkable tactical awareness. Every move has had purpose." Vex turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the primary graviton cannon. Target the largest asteroid concentrations ahead of us. Clear a path." The flagship's main weapon powered up, a low-hum building throughout the massive ship. When it fired, a wave of concentrated gravitational force shot forward, pulverizing asteroids in its path and creating a clear channel through the storm. "Increase speed," Vex ordered. "I want that ship." Jack felt the graviton wave pass near his ship, the space around him distorting as asteroids were crushed into dust. He checked his scanner. The collective flagship was gaining, clearing a path through the storm with its main weapon. "Clever," Jack muttered. He hadn't expected Vex to use the graviton cannon in the storm. The power requirements were enormous, and the weapon was typically reserved for planetary bombardment. Jack pushed his damaged ship harder, diving through an especially dense cluster of asteroids. The Phantom shuddered as small rocks impacted its hull, but the maneuver bought him precious seconds. Finally, he reached the coordinates Tom had sent. The communications relay was attached to a dark asteroid roughly a kilometer wide. Jack brought the Phantom alongside it and extended a docking tube. Working quickly, he connected his ship's systems to the relay. From his stolen data, Jack had created a special transmission package, one that would broadcast everything he had learned about Operation Storm Purge across all collective frequencies and to every independent colony in the sector. "Package loaded," Jack announced into his communicator. "Tom, are you ready?" "Defense grid online and reconfigured. We're ready." Jack took a deep breath. "Beginning transmission in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the activation control. Immediately, The relay powered up, drawing energy from the Phantom systems. The transmission began, sending the details of the collective's planned purge throughout the sector. On the inevitable conclusion, alarms blared as communication systems were suddenly flooded with unauthorized transmissions. "Admiral," the communications officer shouted, "the human is broadcasting our secure operational plans. Every colony in the sector is receiving the data." Vex remained calm, though his skin darkened in anger. "Cut all communications. Jam the frequency." Unable to comply. "The signal is cycling through all our frequencies simultaneously. It's using our own encryption keys." Vex turned to his weapons officer. "Target the source and fire." Jack saw the collective flagship changing position, its main weapon powering up again. He had expected this. The transmission would take another 2 minutes to complete, time he needed to buy. "Tom, it's time for Phase 2. Light them up." On Horizon's surface, Tom stood in the colony's control center with his team. Activating defense grid now. Over the past week, they had modified the colony's shield generators and defense turrets, not to strengthen them, but to change their energy signature. Now, when activated together in a specific sequence, they projected an energy pattern identical to Earth's most powerful battleships. Across the collective fleet, sensors suddenly detected what appeared to be a dozen Earth warships rising from Horizon's surface, their weapons locked on the alien vessels. On the inevitable conclusions bridge, tactical displays showed the new threat. "Admiral, multiple Earth warships detected launching from the planet's surface. They're moving to surround our fleet." For the first time, Vex showed surprise. Impossible. Earth forces couldn't have reached this system yet. He studied the readings carefully. These signatures, they match Earth's newest dreadnoughts. Fleet Commander Drav looked panicked. "We should retreat, Admiral. We're caught between these ships and the storm." "No," Vex's voice was firm. "Those aren't real ships. The energy patterns are too perfect, too uniform." He turned to his weapons officer. "Ignore those readings. Maintain target lock on the human ship." Jack saw the flagship's graviton cannon taking aim at his position. The transmission was at 90%, not enough. He needed more time. "Computer, divert all remaining power to engines. Prepare to detach from the relay." Warning: detaching before transmission completion will result in partial data transfer. "Understood. Execute on my mark." The graviton cannon fired, its beam cutting through the storm directly toward Jack's position. At the last possible second, Jack gave the command, "Mark." The Phantom detached from the relay and accelerated away just as the graviton beam struck. The asteroid and relay were instantly crushed, but the transmission had reached 98% completion, enough to expose the collective's plans. Jack's ship, badly damaged and nearly powerless, drifted deeper into the storm. His part was done. The ghost had delivered its message. 3 days later, the ion storm began to dissipate. The collective fleet, still in position near the asteroid field, received an emergency transmission from High Command. Admiral Vex, the Council representative's hologram, flickered into view on the bridge. Operation Storm Purge has been compromised. The diplomatic situation is difficult. Multiple neutral systems are demanding explanations. Earth has mobilized its fleet and is threatening military action. Vex listened silently. "You are ordered to withdraw all forces from the Horizon system immediately. The Council is declaring Operation Storm Purge canceled. A diplomatic delegation will be sent to begin negotiations with Earth representatives." After the transmission ended, Fleet Commander Drav approached Vex cautiously. "Admiral, shall I give the order to withdraw?" Vex stared at the now clearing storm. "One human," he said quietly. "One human ship changed the course of collective policy. How is this possible?" "Admiral." Vex turned away from the viewport. "Give the withdrawal order, Commander, but maintain a search team in this sector. I want that human found. On a small rocky moon orbiting the system's gas giant, Jack sat in the emergency shelter he had deployed after abandoning the critically damaged Phantom. His emergency beacon was active, broadcasting on Earth military frequencies. His communicator crackled. "Jack, are you receiving? This is Tom." Jack picked up the device. "I'm here. What's the situation?" "The collective fleet is leaving. Earth ships are on their way. They'll reach us in 2 days. Your broadcast worked. The whole sector knows about Storm Purge now." Jack leaned back, allowing himself to smile for the first time in days. "What about the colony?" "Safe. We're bringing everyone back from the shelters. The settlers are calling you the Ghost. Stories are already spreading about how one human ship drove off the entire collective fleet." Jack looked up at the stars visible through his shelter's small viewport. "Not drove off. Just showed them something they didn't expect." "And what's that?" "That sometimes the things you should fear most aren't the ones with the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. Sometimes what you should fear is the ghost in the storm, the one who turns your own strengths against you." As Jack waited for rescue, on the bridge of the retreating inevitable conclusion, Admiral Vex made a personal log entry. Its contents would later become required study at collective military academies. "In our arrogance, we believed technological superiority guaranteed victory. We failed to understand that adaptability, the very trait we feared in humans, is more valuable than strength. One human, alone in an inferior vessel, changed the course of collective history today. We would be wise to remember. It is not the storm we should fear, but the ghost that moves within it."